Board of Adjustment meeting for the City of St. Pete Beach. Will you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Member Causey?
Here.
Member Core?
Here.
Member Small?
Here.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. So I think we start with swearing in for anyone who will be giving testimony today on these cases.
We can. Anyone who will be speaking to the board today needs to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give is truthful? Yes. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we'll start with the agenda. Are there any edits, changes that we need to make at this?
No, Madam Vice Chair, not at this time.
Okay. Anything else from this committee? Okay. Then all in favor of the agenda?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. All right, first item here, we do have, if you have a comment to make that's not related to one of these items, you can fill out one of the yellow cards. You can also use the yellow cards in the back if you're commenting on the case. And at this point, we would accept any just general audience comments. Ginny, if there's any. Okay, then our first order of business, approval of meeting minutes from September.
I move to approve. I second.
Member Core?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have two cases today. First one will be case number 25118, 6655 Gulf Boulevard.
Madam Vice Chair, actually, we have on the agenda review and approval of 2026 meeting dates that were distributed.
Oh, you did. Yes, yes, you did. Let's do that. Thanks. Any comments that you wanted to share on that, or is it just reviewing it and any comments from the board?
The only one thing I did see for the meeting dates, we're missing a November date. We have two December dates.
Oh, we
that are
do?
listed. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I did look at our current year. I apologize. So
I
many
think they
things.
moved it the November to December 2nd because of Thanksgiving. So
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing in November, is that right?
No, there will be a meeting in November, and I'm sorry. I don't know.
Oh, there
how
will
to
be
put that
one.
on there,
Okay.
But I can get that out to you.
And I can say, for this one, for November, we have, for 2025 is November 19th. I would have suggested for 2026, Wednesday, November 18th as a,
That makes sense.
I would ask whether a December 30th date makes sense, given holidays, but
that is correct. This year, we had moved it to December 17th. So to correspond with 2026 would be December 16th. So both were moved earlier.
okay.
Want to do that again?
So November 18th and December 16th, instead of having the December 2nd or December 30th dates.
Correct, and incorporating in the November date, which was not on the draft.
Well, okay, let's just clarify.
There wasn't one, I'm sorry.
Good, okay.
Yes, yes.
So we'll have one for every month. The November date would be the 18th and the December date would be the 16th. Does-
Nothing on December 2nd and nothing on December 30th.
Correct. Those would be
Okay.
struck. Anyone want to make a motion to approve this calendar of meetings?
As amended.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 meeting dates as discussed.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Member Small,
Yes.
Member Causey,
Yes.
Member Core,
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the first case, 6655 Gulf Boulevard, and I think I'll invite Brandon.
Good afternoon, Brendan Berry, planner. This is variance case number 25118. It is an unnecessary and undue hardship variance for the property address of 6655 Gulf Boulevard. Troy Willingham, applicant for Ryan Broder of 6655 Gulf Boulevard LLC, who is the owner. They were both present, request an unnecessary and undue hardship variance for relief from the installation of a required 10-foot sidewalk following the change of use of the property. They seek to maintain the existing sidewalk, which is approximately 5 feet in width or depth, where the sidewalk cannot be reduced to less than 6 feet in depth administratively. That requirement is pursuant to Land Development Code Section 39.10A. We did notice for this case, we have not received any letters for or against the request. Here is an aerial of the property. It's located on the east side of Gulf Boulevard. The property has a zoning of CC2, that is Commercial Corridor Gulf Boulevard. It shares the same land use. This allows for medium intensity commercial uses such as a grocery store, convenience market. We had some difficulty classifying this one. It's really a local neighborhood grocer style development. So just to go into detail, the request is effectively just to maintain the sidewalk depth that is currently in the front of the site. It's approximately 5 feet. The code requires when any development or redevelopment is undertaken, which includes change of uses, that the sidewalk be expanded to 10 feet. Staff, through the Technical Review Committee, does have the ability to reduce the depth of the sidewalk, but to no less than 6 feet. The applicant is seeking to maintain the existing sidewalk at approximately 5 feet in depth. That necessitates this hardship variance. So here is showing the property layout. The applicant is not redeveloping in the sense that they're demolishing the building or adding on to the building. They are changing the use of the building based on the zoning code. Previously, it was a wedding equipment rental, which we would classify as an office/commercial use. It is now being made into a grocery store, local neighborhood market style use. The parking lot is being maintained as well. The applicant is effectively seeking to maintain the property in its current condition. We did review the recommended conditions with the applicant at last week's Technical Review Committee meeting. We had published the report prior to that meeting, so we have not added anything to the report since that meeting took place. We did receive a supplemental letter providing additional justification from the owner that has been forwarded to the Board of Adjustment. Here's some photographs of the site showing the sign posting. The site, and again, the building itself will remain. There are some interior renovations underway, but there are no significant changes to the exterior of the building or any additional floor area that is proposed under this request. I can see the frontage of the site. The applicant has agreed, or sorry, the owner has agreed to remove the overgrown vegetation and replace it with something that's more appropriate. We did notice some visual issues leaving the site because of the overgrowth, and they are going to be correcting that prior to opening. This is looking south down Gulf Boulevard from the sidewalk frontage and looking toward the northern property. Another of the front of the building. Another of the side buffer. This is well vegetated. It does meet our buffering requirements. So based on the strict criteria for an unnecessary and undue hardship variance, the applicant has shown through the issuance of the original permit that the sidewalk could be expanded. They have, through the narrative for this case, expressed some concerns related to potential curb hopping, the actual impact of this grocery store in terms of the need for an additional wider sidewalk, but the permit was issued showing that the sidewalk could be expanded, so it doesn't meet the strict criteria of the code for a hardship variance. However, we do recognize that the applicant's development is a simple change of use. It is a change in use of the interior of the building. They are not making substantial exterior modifications, as we've seen with other changes in use. They're not redeveloping the building or redeveloping the exterior of the site. It is just a change of use of the interior of the business. We recognize that it will likely generate some additional walk-up traffic compared to the use that was in the building previously, but it will likely not be a entirely pedestrian-focused use. There will likely be a lot of vehicular traffic to the site that would not affect or not be impacted by a wider sidewalk. We've spoken to them about another development that they have just east of our jurisdiction. They see that they found that they receive very little walk-up traffic at that development. If the board moves to approve, we understand the challenges that the applicant is facing, which they can provide more through their testimony, and they also provided through the supplemental narrative that was forwarded last week. We have conditioned this approval that should the board look to approve this variance, it is very much a limited in scope approval. Should there be redevelopment of the property to the north or the south, should the applicant further redevelop their property in the future, they would still be responsible for the sidewalk. This approval would effectively be, if approved as conditioned, a temporary waiver instead of an outright property level approval for permanent variance to this requirement. And those recommended conditions, they're provided in more detail within the staff report. But effectively, they are summarized to that the variance expires upon any future construction or change of use constituting development or redevelopment as defined in the Land Development Code. That could be a future change of use of the building, just as the applicant is undertaking here. It could be in addition to the building, other improvements that constitute development or redevelopment. It would also expire upon future development or redevelopment necessitating the same sidewalk improvement on either adjacent property along Gulf Boulevard. And the third condition is that the applicant shall plant appropriate low-growing landscaping in the front buffer. We have reviewed these conditions with the applicant. They seem tentatively in agreement with the three conditions, but they can also provide that through their testimony. So the motion options effectively boil down to approval with the recommended staff conditions or additional or fewer conditions as the board sees fit, denial, or if you need additional information, a continuance to a date certain. Happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, the agent and the applicant are both present.
Can we see the front of it again, Brandon?
The photos or the
The
plan?
photo. No, the other one. It looks right at it. Well, that's good enough. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. So where were they going to put the bushes or whatever it is you're
It would be a change out of the landscaping behind the picket fence there.
in front of the fence?
I believe it's behind. Well, I guess it would be both sides. I believe it's planted on the interior of the property.
Does it seem to lean?
Sorry?
The driveway, is that because it's a driveway, it looks like it leans? It's not straight up like a normal sidewalk?
The curb cut, you mean?
Correct. It is a fairly wide curb cut, so there's that, the Miami curb toward the center, and then it steps up to a,
Is that, good question, though. Can I just pile on that really quick?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that curb a city curb, then responsibility?
that is all state right of way.
It's state?
Yes.
Okay.
FDOT.
So that is an example of the foliage, whatever that bush is that we see right there,
That's the foliage they would be replacing.
getting rid of that and putting something else in.
Correct. Something lower growing.
Fairly ugly, to be honest. And it even goes into the sidewalk.
Okay,
Okay,
any other
thank you.
questions for Brandon? Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, just before the candidate, how do I say, applicant, thank you, comes up, we did not do ex parte, so maybe we should do that
Oh,
real
yes,
quick.
please.
Okay,
Have you spoken with anyone about the application or visited the site or have any other information outside what's considered in this hearing you'd like to disclose?
I-
No.
Site visit, but
I went there, yeah, that's all. Okay, thank you. So now if the applicant would like to come forward.
guys, or how does it work?
Oh, if we don't already have it, then you hand it to the clerk.
Is this a new letter?
No,
Or it's the same, it's already been distributed to the
Oh,
board?
okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan. I own the Bayway Country Store and Butcher Shop, which is, I think, politically referred to as a fresh food grocery store nowadays, just outside of Tierra Verde. And I'm looking to do the same thing at this site here, 6655 Gulf Boulevard. And we're just at the point to where a lot of stuff has gone wrong in development, and we're kind of running out of money to get open, mainly regarding the electrical. Due diligence was incorrect. There is three-phase available behind the site, but Duke wouldn't let us tap into it, so that significantly raised the cost of development. You know, we got that citizens letter, hey, we don't care that you sent us, you know, an inspection on this roof. You got to get a new roof or we're immediately dropping your insurance. So that added even more to the development cost. And it's just kind of at the point to where I'm worried about being dead on arrival. You know, like I have enough money to get the construction done, but that's not really the cost of running a business. You know, you have to hire and train employees, you have to put food in the building, you have to do opening advertisement, things of that nature. And it's really starting to get tight. You know, as we closed on this building November last year, just after the hurricanes, and based on due diligence, I really thought this would be maybe a 6-month project. But now we're going to be past the 1-year mark. And it's really looking to be late November, December at the rate we're going. And it's just at that point to where we've had to cut a lot of interior services to what I initially expected to do. And I'm worried now if, you know, I have to do this sidewalk work today, that I'm just out of money to get open, you know. And I know that doesn't strictly meet the definitions of, you know, the variance stuff, but, you know, I really, this is something that residents have asked me about for years. You know, I'm pretty close to the city of St. Pete Beach. I'm not technically in the city of St. Pete Beach. And it felt like good timing, you know, it's rare for buildings to pop up that are insurable nowadays, that an owner-operator can actually afford. You know, so I really believed in this building, you know, that I could have, you know, that nice neighborhood grocery store, you know, fresh meat, fresh vegetables, that kind of stuff. And it's just been a very long-winded development process, you know, mainly due to Duke. I know the exterior is pretty overgrown at the moment. That was indirectly related to, I couldn't really get a good answer on the total amount of site work that I had to do once Duke changed it, because we had to do underground for the electrical. And there was also a little bit of ambiguity about the water line service, that we might have to go underneath the existing to add in an air gap, air break or air gap for the water service. So that's why I didn't really bother maintaining it, because I thought I was ripping it all out anyways. So that's kind of why the property's in its current state. But long-term, aesthetically pleasing stuff is good for retail business. You know, I of course intend to, you know, make it very pretty, trim everything, have stuff, you know, good to go, because you want a warm, inviting store for people to shop at. You know, people don't like to shop at dingy stores, you know, not for fresh food anyways, you know. You know, cigarettes, something else, but I don't really sell many of those. So that's really about it.
Could you tell us more about the sidewalk? Not so much about the financial stuff, but we need to know why you, what the problem is with providing a sidewalk. It looks apparent from the photos,
so
but if you could
it's-
describe that.
It's an interior lot, so I don't, it's one of those slanted, I think it's called a Miami curb style. So it's not really a good sidewalk from a pedestrian standpoint anyways, but I'm worried that if the state just makes me extend this ramp essentially up another 2 to 4 feet, it's essentially just a giant ramp for cars to hop over. You know, I'd like to maintain it as is, because if I maintain it as is, we keep the landscape barrier and we keep that picket fence. And I think that kind of forces cars to slow down as they would enter the property. Whereas if we expand the sidewalk, we're functionally removing the landscape barrier. So by not having that landscape barrier, I feel it's kind of inviting for cars to just hop that curb. There's also, within that space, the signage would kind of be enveloped in concrete. It wouldn't be like a clear, free and clear sidewalk. We're just wrapping concrete around an existing light pole and the existing pole signage for the building. So I don't think you'd really get that true pedestrian, 2-lane effect that I think the city's looking for anyways, if we did expand it at this time. If the building to the north is developed, I'm not against redeveloping it later, because then that's a good accommodation for a grocery store to have a continuous sidewalk. But as it is today in the foreseeable future, it's really just expanding a random patch of sidewalk, and it's not going to be continuous or, in my opinion, really good pedestrian accommodation because of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions?
Did you put a new roof on it?
Oh, yeah. New roof's on. We're really just waiting on one custom electrical panel that we ended up having to buy. But other than that, pretty much all the interior's done, all the equipment's been delivered. It's really just at the point to where I need to, get all the final permitting and approval stuff signed off.
Your other store on the Bayway is wonderful. I like it a lot. How many retail square feet compared to the property over here?
Bayway is 3,300 square feet. This new store should be 2,200 square
Yes,
feet.
much smaller.
It's smaller, but what I've noticed is that retail has changed a lot since COVID. Dry goods sales are down significantly. There's not really as much demand for, that box of crackers or anything, because I think culturally people have shifted to just buying that from delivery services. I think Kroger I see a lot in Paso Grill nowadays. There's also Walmart delivery.
Do you have wine and beer permit?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a wine and beer permit to
I
sell?
have an existing one. I cannot get final approval for beer and wine until the Department of Agriculture signs off on the building, which I need to have running hot water for that. So that's just waiting on that last electrical panel. Beer and wine is, I already have a beer and wine license from the other store, so it's very academic to get another one, because I've already gone through the background check and fingerprinting processes required for a package. I think it's a 2 APS dual license in technicality.
Any other questions about the fence and the sidewalk area in front of the building?
I understand there were some utilities that were located in that area that would be affected if you were to redo the sidewalk. Lights?
I don't, so, oh yes, there's, we had to put a new pad mount transformer, but I think that's, I don't know if that would directly connect, but there's currently a parking lot light right up against the current sidewalk, as well as the pole signage for the building right up against the current sidewalk, and that would be, I guess, kind of have to be wrapped around in concrete to finish the sidewalk. I don't think that, I haven't talked to Duke if they would move the light pole or not. That's kind of a long-winded process. And I would be worried if I lose the pole signage, is the business viable? Just because the building is set back. So if I lose the pole signage, or if that signage is significantly altered, I would be very much worried about, does the business have enough exposure to get consistent foot traffic? My other store has, a digital, what's the term? A digital marketing center, sign center, a digital sign. And that was a big boost to sales. So knowing that, I think if I had any negative alterations to the current signage, that I would have difficulty driving enough foot traffic to remain open year-round, just because of the tourist dichotomy, Like we'd all like to pretend that locals keep me in business, and they do most of the year, but I would break even without that, tourist traffic that helps boost things for 3 months of the year.
I did go and look at the site, and I know what you're referring to. I don't even think we saw a picture. I don't know if you had anything else to share, but where it looks like a new a utility green box that
Yeah, that's
literally
the
looks
new
like
pad mount
inches off of the
transformer that
sidewalk.
Yeah,
Okay.
had us install that.
Okay.
And that's kind of why the whole site's a mess, is we had to do a lot of digging and a lot of cutting, and that underground utility work was a lot.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Any other questions for candidate? Applicant? Saying no. Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you very much.
Okay. So, are there any audience comments on this case?
Yes, I do. William Lawson?
Good afternoon, William Lawson, 5407 Leilani Drive. Just wanted to show up here and support a great local business. I think we've been shopping since we've been in exile down in Tierra Verde, working on our rebuilding at the Bayway reliably, and we'd come in every week or more and ask Ryan, hey, how's it going? Heard about that store in St. Pete Beach. And it's been one story after another. And it's just exciting to see him persevering through this. But when you look at the way that this particular case unfolds, it just seems like we would all as a city benefit from a more coordinated approach to our pedestrian pathways. And it just makes a lot of sense what staff has recommended to say, hey, let's not worry about this little sidewalk to nowhere right now. Let's wait until we have a critical mass of improvements that will make this actually look good and not have, concrete wrapping around poles and whatnot. And let's, deal with the FDOT issue and figure out how to make it a pedestrian-friendly sidewalk that doesn't just turn into a big ramp into the property. So, thank you for your time today. Thank you for doing everything that you can, anything you can, to make it easier for this great business to serve our community while we don't have a grocery store and beyond. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jolynn Lawson?
Hi there. Jolynn Lawson, 5407 Leilani Drive. I don't have much more to say than my husband, but I am here in support of you granting Ryan the variance request with the staff proposed conditions. I do think there are lots of residents ready for a small grocery store, and can't wait for this to open, and we would like to support him in this business. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. And at this time, we'll close for comments and have board discussion.
We need a grocery store.
I agree.
I think it's,
If it's anything like his other store, it would be beneficial
Yeah.
to our community, no doubt about it.
I agree, but I did have a question for Krista, and I think, so is there any interest in either of the properties on either side? Do we know of anything that's going to happen with that? Because it seems like we would want to defer the sidewalk to more like a year time frame instead of 6 months or 3 months or 2 months from now.
So when staff was out there with regards to the adjacent properties, the property that is more towards the north, I believe is a real estate agent, it's kind of vacant at this time, may be possibly the one that may trigger it. To the south is the veterinary office, which I know recently went under new ownership with a new vet there.
Okay.
So I don't see that really changing too much, but I think it might be helpful to kind of understand with these conditions, and if it's triggered on redevelopment, how that would be enacted. Like, how we would notice the adjacent, or the current property owner, an applicant today, that he needs to now put in the new sidewalk.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm wondering if we could, and just in case the property to the north side were to change 2 months from now, could we make it where maybe it's triggered by either or both properties changing, or else put like a deferred for a year, or,
Okay,
you see what I mean?
whichever
Mhm.
occurs.
Is later,
Okay.
in order to give him a little bit more time to, is that a possibility?
Brandon, you want to address how you've written conditions? That we have the number 1,
Yeah,
2, and 3. I think number 1
just
or
one.
number 2 may be the most relevant there.
So the time trigger is not in there, so are you looking for a provide by or provide not sooner than?
Do you want to explain how it works right now, Brandon?
Sure, so currently it's based on redevelopment of either property, which could be simply a restoration and change of use of the property to the north, if that's the direction they go down. It could, of course, be a full site redevelopment, new building, if they chose to do that as well, but there's no timeline for that. If that happens in 5 years, they would be the subject applicant would be responsible in 5 years. If it's 3 months from now, it would be 3 months as currently drafted.
And that says the owner shall provide an aligned sidewalk of at least the depth required for the adjacent property, with the timing of the improvement to be managed relative to the timing of the sidewalk improvement on the adjacent property. So
Yeah,
in
and
other words, when the other sidewalk goes in, this sidewalk would be expanded to meet the size of the adjacent sidewalk.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if maybe we should make the condition that both properties, north and south, instead of only just either or. I think that would address my concern that the north property might change in just a couple of months from now, and then we'd be changing the sidewalk right away. Because everyone wants to have a grocery store. That doesn't go out of business.
I just want to clarify to your point, like what we're reading here, because my understanding is if we are to grant this variance, it's specific for this property, and it is independent of if an independent person comes in and does something next door on either side. They have this variance specific to their property. However, if they are the ones that are involved in the property to the north or the south, or any redevelopment on the property again, then they would be looking at either requesting a different variance, or maybe just clarify, because
Sure.
I may be
So-
getting confused.
So condition 1 would be specific to redevelopment of the subject property. So if someone else came in and changed the use to a restaurant or something in the future, they would have to go through this process again based on condition 1. Condition 2 would be triggered by either adjacent property redeveloping. So that could be a change of use, it could be a full site redevelopment, tear down, rebuild, it could be a significant addition. So it would be either of those would necessitate the need for a sidewalk on the frontage of this property as currently drafted.
And it also says when they develop the adjacent properties, if they have a different size sidewalk, this property would then match that size sidewalk
Right, I think
width.
staff, we have the authorization to reduce depth to 6 feet, but we didn't want to ask the applicant to provide a 6-foot in-depth sidewalk when we want 10 feet down the line and make them go through that whole process and then come back in the future and do it again. We thought it was acceptable to tie it to adjacent development if need be.
The idea here was not to have just one property with a wider sidewalk than everybody else, because it makes less sense than having a contiguous section or segment of roadway that has the 10-foot
Yeah, okay.
or 6-foot sidewalk.
Okay, so it is as you're describing, which it's related to, independent of this property owner and what they're doing. They're saying they remain subject to what happens on either side. Okay.
Correct, that
When
condition
they
too. which
expand
is-
on either side, then this one would have to expand to match it.
Okay, okay, thanks for clarifying. I guess I'm with you.
Yeah.
On this, I walked the proper, or
Still
I'll
wouldn't
say
make sense
drove
if
in
it was
and
sidewalks.
looked around, and,
So-
I mean, there's significant, there would be significant impact to having a wider sidewalk there. Signs are out that far. I mean, I think this is the nature of being a city that was built up probably in the 50s and 60s, that there's signposts, the utilities are out there. I mean, just, it does feel like it demands a more comprehensive citywide effort to sort this one out than it's going to be a property owner by property owner.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And will they have to apply for variances to narrow their sidewalk?
And I think it's something to tee up as a topic, you know, for maybe the commission again to look at as we're looking at other things that this board explores. And how could we, I mean, we all want our streets and our pedestrians and our bikers and lanes to be, you know, have spaces that create safety. I mean, I think we all know you as a business owner, you want your pedestrian traffic and you want them to be safe. Yeah, but if you want to talk, you can come back up.
They have something called Complete Streets that is a transportation planning concept. Again, remember that this particular Gulf Boulevard is owned by FDOT, so we would have to work in conjunction with FDOT for Complete Streets, bike share, bike paths, pedestrian crossings, all those involve collaboration, interlocal agreements perhaps with FDOT, a joint planning effort.
Yeah, for the sake of comparison, when the state put in, I think it's called the Bayway Trail or the Pinellas Trail extension, that was a really significant improvement to bikeability. Like, I do get on the weekends a lot more bike traffic before that. It's strictly a logistical issue. I think what you guys said is, am I, as a random guy that wants to own a business, appropriate to do that? Because it probably won't be continuous for a while, you know, as I know certain municipalities have done like raised biking and pedestrian pathways in addition to the road, which those I think work well. But as it is today, you know, the next year or whatever, you know, I do really feel that it's academically a very poor pedestrian accommodation in the near term, you know. Just being a one-off, I think it's 200 feet of frontage, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, or maybe we talk about making a motion? Sounds like you might want to make the
I
motion.
could give it a try, and then you could think about if you like it or not. All right, so I would move that we provide the variance, in this case with the staff recommended conditions for case number 25118, 6655 Gulf Boulevard, and with the only change of the three conditions being item number 2, which was going to expire the variance on the date of authorization for any permit or site plan that constitutes a development or on either adjacent property. And I would change that to it would expire when both sides are approved.
Instead of the word either, use the word both?
I believe that would do it.
Okay.
Both adjacent properties.
So it's the latter of the two
That's
joining
true.
properties. The second one, when the second one comes in, then this one would come in.
Can we ask the applicant, is that too onerous to ask of you?
Just at any given point in time, the north and south will develop. I think that's more than fair, given, you know, what I've asked.
When you see the second one comes in, then you have to match their sidewalk.
You know, it's really, I'll know if this is gonna work by the end of April.
Yeah, it will be a different owner.
That's
The
tourist
north and
season,
south.
and,
Well, I don't think anything else is going to happen before then anyway, based on...
you know.
Okay.
So I think we made a motion.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Only one more thing. Brandon, do we typically record the variances once they're granted?
Typically not, but we could record it against the property. You mean?
I think in this particular case, in case this subject property, the grocery store sells, that way anyone that purchases it when they're doing their due diligence would know that this was a requirement. So I'd recommend that the variance, if approved, be recorded and a copy be provided to the city.
So can I ask a question about that then? So I think in this case, it's driven by the fact that this is a grocery store. So you're talking about if it were a change from a grocery store?
No, I'm saying that if this gentleman here and his company is going to sell the property, obviously know that there's a condition there, but a future prospective buyer would know then that there's this condition that they have to widen their sidewalk when the next door neighbors widen.
Right, so it's just simply, I mean, if he was to sell it to someone else, it stays exactly the same.
Okay, same
Being
use.
flipped as who owns it, then it would be visible in the,
Not changing any of the change of use rules or anything like that. We're saying you have a variance and the variance runs with the land until the adjoining properties change their sidewalk, then this property will have to match their sidewalk.
that makes sense.
Okay.
It's just for good visibility, I think, for whoever owns the property, what they're responsible to.
So there's no surprises.
Correct, yeah, that's what we want, no surprises. And successful, healthy businesses, especially grocery stores on St. Pete Beach. So do we want to amend the motion or make it
Want
as
to
a second motion?
restate the motion?
Yeah, you want to restate?
It'll
Sure.
be forward either to
Yeah,
both.
good luck again.
All right, I would move that we grant the variance for case number 25118 for 6655 Gulf Boulevard with the staff recommended conditions except for item number 2. And in that item, in the first sentence, we would change the word from either adjacent property to both adjacent properties. And then do we need to add a comment about this being a recorded variance?
Condition number 4 would be that this
Condition
variance
4.
shall be recorded in the official property records of Pinellas County.
Okay.
Golf and Bay Dockworks LLC is appearing for Scott Brown, owner, requesting an unnecessary undue hardship variance to construct a 2.5 foot by 20 foot extension of the lower landing on a non-conforming existing dock with relocation of the existing eastern boat lift to the end of the proposed lower landing, creating a length overall of 106 feet where 37.9 feet is permitted and where 91.5 feet currently exists. Looking for relief from Land Development Code Section 6.23D3. The subject waterfront parcel is outlined in red. It has single-family uses to the east, west, and south, and Boca Ciega Bay to the north. It is located within the RU2 zoning district. Again, the variance detail request, they're again looking for where a 37.9 foot length deck or dock is permitted, existing is 91.5 feet and proposed will be 106 feet. So the survey of the property with its current existing conditions, you can see the main part of the application today is dealing with the existing dock. You can see the existing dock at the top of the survey. It does contain to the west a lift that contains 2 jet skis, and then also the existing lift to the eastern side or the right is part of the application in question. And here's just a better view with dimensions and a diagram of the request, as well as you get to see the overall length of the adjacent docks as well. I have provided some staff photos just standing on the rear patio of the subject dock, so you can kind of see it from all different angles, as well as an overhead aerial of the adjacent properties as well. I'll give you a moment because that is a lot to take in at once, if that's okay.
Yeah, and just to, I mean, that picture's so tiny, but, and I didn't go, well, we also need to do ex parte here as well, but I'll just say, I did not go walking around your property or looking in your backyard, but just seeing this picture, could you just clarify, so this
Sure.
is what we're looking at on this tiny picture of, looks like jet skis, and then is it?
The jet skis are on the left, and the existing dock, or the lift to the right, of the head of the dock, that is going to be relocated to the front, as well as an extension of the lower landing. And I do have a lot of additional pictures, because I
Oh,
know you
good.
didn't get out there.
Okay,
And I think I
okay.
have another bigger one of that exact one.
Okay, thank you.
So now I'm just going to bring you on to the property. Noticing was completed as required. At this point, staff has not received any letters at the time of the agenda posting or to date in support or objection. And this just gives you the view of the house from the street in case you ever happen to drive down Boca Ciega Drive. This is the property. And here's another view from the patio, the rear patio by the pool. And here's a better close-up view with the jet skis to the left and the dock, the boat lift to the right. Here's a picture of the existing lower landing that is to be extended an additional 2.5 feet. And this is a view looking east. Another just kind of as I'm turning. And this is a view to the west. And there is a dock on the adjacent property as well. And here's just turning, looking back towards the dwelling. So staff did find that the applicant has addressed the criteria, but does request additional testimony be provided as noted, that substantial and competent evidence has been provided. The applicant should provide testimony regarding the depth required to provide adequate boat access and further explanation for the need for the additional extension of the lower landing, and an update on the status of building permit 2504930 for the proposed maintenance dredging, including next steps if the permit is still being pursued or if is going to be withdrawn. I really didn't get into that, being that that was part of my staff report, but the applicant is part of saying that they can't utilize that existing lift, so I'd like some additional testimony. They did have some dredging reports, but in doing a comprehensive review of the property, it was noted that they had a building permit application in there for dredging. It's just kind of been in limbo, so I'd just like some additional information on that to be provided. Okay. Happy to answer any questions you may have. I know the applicant is here as well.
Do you want to do the ex parte before the applicant goes? Then-
Of course, and just before we do that, any questions for Kristen?
Well, I'm trying to, I guess we'll talk to the applicant. I'm still trying to understand what the hardship is.
Okay. Do you want to clarify that, Kristen, then? Or not the
Applicant's gonna-
hardship, but yes,
Applicant's going
okay.
to have to address that.
Okay,
No ex parte.
all right. No,
None.
okay. Okay, then, we invite the applicant to come up, and please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Micah Thompson, owner of Gulf and Bay Dock Works, 1510 51st Street South, Gulfport, Florida. I'm the owner of Gulf and Bay Marine. I would also like my counterpart Shannon to share. She's never shared before a Board of Adjustment, but she's been the primary due diligence and client contact, so I wouldn't mind if she got the opportunity to share a little more detail. We were first contacted by our dredging division. The couple bought this house in the spring, loved the house, particularly liked the ability with the view and to use this existing lift. They quickly realized after closing they could not get their boat on the lift. We applied for dredging. The FDEP turned us down for dredging. So there's too much seagrass there right now. They know they don't want to do something that's too much of a hardship. They like the dock, they like the house. They simply want to be able to use their boat, and dredging is now not an option. So the most minimal thing we can do, and we've checked it out with their boat, and we've had their boat right alongside the front, would just be add 2.5 feet to what they have and take the existing lift and put it here. That's what we're trying to do. That would give them sufficient depth without having to dredge. It would also allow the seagrass that's currently there to continue to grow, and that's basically what we're asking for. The neighbor to the right is certainly okay with it. The neighbor to the left is quite the character, and he's quite the character. He's pretty well known in St. Pete.
What does that mean?
He's he lit his yard on fire last fall. He's
On purpose?
yeah, he's basically squatting in the house. It's not supposed to be livable. There's lots of things that are going on with this gentleman to the left. the wife of the new owners of this house are scared to approach him. So Shannon has a little bit more info she can provide, but we were not able to get a signature from him. She can give a little more detail to that as well. Not something I normally mention, but in this case, I felt the need to do so. So,
So signatures are not required for a variance.
okay.
If you had signatures from both neighbors, then they would not be here. That's why that's important.
That is correct.
Correct, okay.
Right.
And the neighbor to the right is certainly fine with it and has signed off.
Has signed off.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
Can you clarify, you said the DEP denied the dredging permit because of the presence of seagrasses?
The seagrass under the lift, as it is now.
So for environmental
We
reasons?
can show you a
it was
picture.
denied.
One of the things Shannon's going to show you is a picture of the depths under the lift. And
Okay, let's show the pictures, yeah.
And I may have missed it, but did you provide the city with a copy of the denial for the dredging?
have we?
And if not, then when you come up, you can testify on that, but since you mentioned it happened, then I'd just like to have that entered into the
Okay,
record.
absolutely, absolutely. And you want to come on up?
She can be an expert, yeah. She's not an applicant, but she's an expert.
You can state your name and address for the record, and I assume you were sworn in as well?
Yes, I was.
Okay, great.
I'm Shannon Lemus, and I live at 244 York Street North, St. Petersburg, Florida. As far as, yes, the FDEP there are email chains, and they didn't technically deny it, but there are email chains with them saying, like, this is not a possible issue. And we can get a hold of those for you. They're between our engineer who filed a permit on our behalf and the FDEP. We also, there was multiple, let's see here. There was other reports and documentation, and they spent a couple $1,000s and pulled in specialists from all different groups, different engineerings, and all of them came to the same conclusion that dredging was just not possible at this property. It was probably about 6 months of work and time into that. And then they came back to us and asked, what else can we do? So this is the option that we came up with at that point. Now, as far as the depth goes,
Yeah, we'll get the overhead going.
Can we have the overhead?
So these lines right here are showing our depth here. So we can see where the dock currently sits right now. That's going to be at about 2.5 feet deep, where the lift is over here. So then these lines come across here. So where we are asking to move it out to is where we meet our depth at about 4 feet. Which is the reason for adding the 2.5 foot lower landing extension, is to get us to that actual 4 feet of depth. And the reason that we need that amount of depth is the lowers of the lift itself are about 9.5 inches, and then you add the bunks on top of the lowers, and that's about an additional 6 inches between the lowers and the bunks, and then the boat itself is going to draw 36 inches.
Is this at high tide or low tide or
This
meet?
is a low tide.
This is at low tide.
In low tide, yes. So that adds up to 51.5 inches, and we are actually requesting, to put it roughly at 48 inches. So again, the very, very minimal that we can, and they still probably won't be able to use it at an extreme low tide at that point.
Okay, anything else?
As that basically covers the dredging, the two questions up there, the depth and the dredging as well. Other than that, I don't think so at this time. Do you have anything to add? No? Okay.
Then just one other question about the actual lift itself. Is this the most, I guess, is this lift what you would consider the only lift option given this kind of depth, or is there other approaches that they could take with the existing configuration?
The existing lift, I think it was good at one time when it was installed. I think you've had some infill, and then I think you've had a lot of marine life grow there the last couple of years. I don't know of a lift system that would hold their boat that would be any shallower.
Mm-hmm.
For very small boats where we know, like up near Wheaton, we can put slings on a small 19, 20-foot boat. They they bought this boat for that lift, thinking they're going to be able to use that lift. It's a good lift. It's not a brand we install. It's a Neptune, but it's a strong brand made on the East Coast. It's got as minimal depth as any lift on the market for this size boat.
Okay, thank you for that testimony. And then, the neighbor, you said on the right, I don't know if that's north or south or east or west right now, but, west. You do have they did sign off?
Yes, so as far as, they did, and I do have a copy of that right here. I do believe he flip-flopped the neighbors as far as which one was which. So we're unable to obtain the right neighbor, but the left neighbor has signed off, yes.
Okay.
Can you say the east or west instead of right and left?
The right would be the west, and the left would be the east.
East.
Wait, staff is saying no.
Backwards.
You said we were looking north.
Yes, we're looking north. So to the east would be Shamblin, correct?
Would be the left.
The neighbors are when you're facing the water.
Okay. Yeah, from the back of the house.
From the back of the
Yes.
house, yes.
So to the east would not sign. The west did sign.
Yes, it has to be. If that's north, that's only,
That's why east and west works better.
It looks like one neighbor has a pool and the other neighbor does not have a pool.
So left is east.
Okay.
The east neighbor has signed off. The west neighbor has not.
Okay, so it's just the opposite. Okay.
So just to jibe with the picture, can you see the one that has the pool?
Can we go back to the presentation, please, real quick? Let's just go back to the picture. Sorry, I'm just going to get you back to that aerial.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So the property, I guess they're saying with the pool, which is to the left, which would be west.
Did not.
Yes, did sign.
Did sign. The one with the pool did sign.
Correct.
Okay.
So the east did not.
Correct.
And I can give you,
Is there something that shows the channel location?
We have. It's not a great printed picture on our book, but you can pull one up here.
Maybe we'll go to the overhead again.
Yeah, I think that overhead showed the depth pretty well of the water.
You're just pointing out the channel there is where we can kind of see the browner area outside of the green. Yeah, okay. Okay. So yeah, I think I'd like to have the dredging pursuit information included for the record, but based on your testimony, understand it sounds like a 6-month pursuit. I'm not sure why there isn't an ability for a final, quote, denial, or how that works. I have never pursued that myself, but
DEP does not like to say no, but they will discourage you from continuing.
by just dragging it on forever and ever? Okay.
Telling you this is not advisable, please withdraw your application.
Yeah, that's basically what they told us.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's
Okay, thank you for your
said very well.
your expert history and experience there. Any other questions for the applicant?
Could you draw on that diagram and turn it into the clerk where the channel is located, just so we have it as part of the record?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the concern, is if the new lift is extending into the navigable channel width. And how far is that? How wide is the deep water there? In feet?
I guess the question is, does it block the channel?
Right.
It does not, and there's, a channel here is a very loose term.
there's no channel markers there, right?
There's no channel
Right.
here at all. It's just slightly deeper, 5 feet this way. And the vegetation seems to drop off at that mark because of the depth.
So do boats travel from their docks straight out, or do the boats go along the edge of the docks?
They tend to go out before they tend to just go out before they leave. And again, this isn't a great.
So they'll travel out perpendicular to the shoreline and then go parallel when they...
They'll go out to this wider, it's not really a channel, it's just more depth between the shoreline seagrass and then the seagrass that's probably 200 feet out.
May we have the overhead, please? There we go.
The other question, I guess, is does this extension prevent boats from accessing where they
It does not.
navigate?
So if you can see, it's very shallow here, and it's very shallow here. And where the sun is, in those shallow depths, is where we've had, which is good for the environment, much more seagrass in the last couple of years. But the boats basically travel out to this area here, which is not an official navigable channel, and then they run out to deeper water.
Could you draw some lines where you use your finger, so if we go to court, I can show the judge where you're pointing? Thanks.
Also, by chance, do we know when this picture was taken? Just as a time frame? Any estimate?
This is just-
I was taken off of Property Appraiser, so I believe it was the 2024 version of Property Appraiser. Tend to be able to see the seagrass and the depth better in that version.
I mean, with the way that this is designed, will this be lit at the end? I mean, I'm sure they don't want their boat getting hit either, and if they're sticking out furthest from everyone else, is there some way that this is going to be visible to avoid any boater issues in the evenings?
I'm sure they would be open to it, but they're actually, if you actually boat by it, these down here tend to stick out much more. Sorry, I've got to do it backwards here. These tend to stick out much more. This will still be in line, and this is so shallow that you can't run at speed in here.
Well, it happens.
It does happen.
Accidents happen.
As we know.
Moving the lift out, I'm sure they would be happy to put a light on the end if you'd like. I don't think they would have a problem with that.
I mean, it might be safer for,
You can make it a condition of approval for a light or reflectors or both.
yeah. Okay,
They'd be okay with that.
okay. Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. And I think we don't have any comments, so, because there's no one here unless. So I think we'll then close the discussion until, and we can discuss as a board.
Well, actually, I did have one more question. When you said that picture was taken in what year? 24?
24 appraiser
It was
site.
2000.
So pre-hurricane.
It was a 24 appraiser site, so we don't really know
Okay,
exact. I think
okay.
that's the
I don't think,
testimony that she
If
gave.
anything, it may have filled in even a little more, so, yeah.
I think we should grant it. I think it's fine. I think putting the light on is a good idea.
Great idea.
But, I mean, if they can't use it, it's kind of a, they're stuck. Can't use it, and they can't dredge it, so there's only one other option. And it's not,
And I appreciate the minimum depth now better with hearing the testimony about you're not just adding, they're not just looking to expand a lower landing, but actually giving just that extra distance helps them to get to the depth that they have to have
I
at a
mean,
minimum.
honestly, nobody would prefer a longer dock, because it's
I
just more
would-
trouble to go all the way back.
Right, that's true. So, okay, would anyone want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move to approve case number 25125 at 2050 Boca Ciega Isle Drive, with the condition that a light be added to the end of the new dock.
Furthest planning, yeah. I'll second.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Member Core?
Yes?
Member Small?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, that closes the cases for today. Thank you. Item for discussion, board duties and variance procedures.
You have the presentation, please? get you there. So I did put together a couple slides, just regards to just give a basic foundation, and then we can expand upon that, but just our board duties and variance procedures, where we get our powers from as a board, and then also the land development code, the specific types of variances and the criteria. You see the applications, you may not have seen our land development code. You know, you can always access it online or in print, but just to kind of give you a basic framework. So Article 2 of the Code of Ordinances, under Section 2237, gives the Board of Adjustment their powers and duties generally. They are to review all subdivision plats submitted to the city, report its findings, comments, and recommendations to the City Commission. We don't really see a lot of them. You do see a lot of variances from the terms of the Land Development Code in accordance with those limitations specified within the LDC, and also to hear and decide other matters as specifically assigned by ordinance to the board for determination. But for the main purposes, you generally stick to number 2. So what is a variance? Basically, a variance is a grant of relief by the Board of Adjustment, the City Commission, or the City Manager from the requirements of the Land Development Code, or LDC. And it's a set of ordinances enacted by the City of the St. Pete Beach for the regulation of any aspect of subdivision and the development of land. So that's why it's always pulled back to your Land Development Code, LDC. But the Code of Ordinances is what gives you your powers. Feel free to jump in anytime. I didn't look at these with you.
One thing I was going to tell everyone, and you may already know this, but when you go to municode.com, then you can click Florida Library, and it'll give you every city and county's land development code and code of ordinances, and you click St. Pete Beach, and it'll give you 2 choices. One is the code of ordinances, and the other one is the land development code. So your powers and duties are in the code of ordinances, that first button, and then when you go to the variance criteria, those are in the land development code, that second red hot link button, and then you can search and see what's in there.
And generally, as part of an application, we as staff, and even part of our noticing, will pull out the specific sections within the LDC that they're looking or requesting relief from. So we have that factual basis of the nitty-gritty, what is it that you're requesting that relief from?
And that'll be in the staff report for you to read.
Correct. And as far as the noticing goes that we send out, you know, the public notice of hearing, and as well as the Tampa Bay Times. So those are posted, staff does handle. We can't put it on those big bird yellow signs, but we also post the parcel telling everybody that's an interested party that there is a case that is coming up. So the types of variances, there are 3 types of variances available. You've heard unnecessary undue hardship variances. We had 2 of those today, as well as practical difficulty. And then there's another one that's administrative or de minimis variances. You guys don't see those. Those go actually before the city manager for approval. But there's certain nuances that will trigger it to be limited to go to the city manager. So I'll get to that. So for an unnecessary undue hardship is a relaxation of the terms of the provisions of the Land Development Code where such action will not be contrary to the public interest and where owning to conditions peculiar to the property and not the result of actions of the applicant. A literal enforcement of the Land Development Code would result in an unnecessary and undue hardship on the property. So this type of variance is appropriate for all properties and uses. It requires a full hearing before the Board of Adjustment. It has 8 criteria in which a positive finding must be found by the board, where the applicant must provide the burden of proof and demonstrate by substantial competent evidence that all the criteria have been met and satisfied. So we as staff, we do go through, you'll see in the application when we post it, what the applicant has given us, and they have to answer those questions and that criteria. We as staff also do kind of a rebuttal. Now we can support what we see in the application, where we can ask additional questions or provide additional information. Like today, when I was looking at our previous case, when I went back through the property and I found the open building permit, or the submittal, it wasn't opened, but I found submittal. So I'm giving you more history than you may not know or may not have been provided.
Beyond what the applicant has.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here are the criteria. There are 8. So you'll notice when you get a staff findings report for an unnecessary undue hardship. It's a little longer because we have additional criteria rather than a practical difficulty. So again, it's the special conditions and circumstances exist that are, you know, specific to that land, structure, or building involved, that are within the same zoning district. So we looked at the property as an individual, but also as a whole within others around the district. So that's why you'll see a lot of times the aerials. I want to show you what's around, and of course it's dependent on what the ask is, right? They do not result in the actions of the applicant or a prior owner of the property.
It can't be a self-created hardship,
Correct.
in other words.
Yep, good point. Literal interpretation of the provisions of the LDC deprives the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the Land Development Code and results in an unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. So if we're looking at that code, black and white, are we depriving them of something? The hardship has not been deliberately or knowingly created or suffered to establish a use or structure which is not otherwise consistent with the comp plan or the LDC, or will it permit an increase in development density? So that's where we look at, are they increasing the intensity? Is it going to create an additional use that isn't permitted, or a structure that is not, it may be a non-conforming structure? So that's what we look at there. An applicant's desire or ability to achieve greater financial return or maximum financial return from the property does not constitute hardship. And that board attorney kind of touched on a little earlier today. It's always part of the story, but it not necessarily is what you would base it off of. Granting the variance application conveys the same treatment to the applicant as to the owner of other lands, buildings, or structures within the same district. So while we have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis, there may be some considerations that staff may mention within our staff findings report. The requested variance is the minimum variance that makes possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. So that's where we look at options, other alternatives. Staff does like to meet with applicants before they actually submit, and that's one of my hard questions, and I'll tell them, I'm going to ask you a hard question. Could you redesign this a different way? Could you do other things that would not make you have to go before this board? So,
Or could you get by with 8 feet instead of 10 feet?
correct. So can we massage it to make it a better project that would either lessen the degree of variance that they're requesting, possibly eliminate it? And sometimes you get the, I'll go back and look at it, and sometimes people are like, this is it, I'd like to proceed. But staff, I just, you know, we will mention that in our staff report, and we also have those hard conversations, if we can, prior to coming before you.
Well, and just before you move on, to me, I think our sidewalk conversation today is a perfect like pointer to number 7 and 8, with which I would look at and say, as a city, and it sounds like with FDOT, like we need to have a hard conversation, and it doesn't feel to me like right now demanding 10 feet when everything else is whatever that distance is, and maybe it's 5. I don't even know if it was a full 5 feet when I walked there, probably because of the grasses. But I mean, that idea is lovely, right, for safety, and that there's so much value in that. But yet, I would say probably a bit ridiculous to have one property do that and then not. So how do we sort of, I think, work through that part as I look at these two and think, wow, if we have a lot of redevelopment, which in a good way up and down Gulf Boulevard, how do we partner in a way with FDOT to look at this
That's a really good
so anyhow,
question.
just putting that up in a pin in that one, but
Some of the larger projects, like the Windward project, we've done promenades
Yes,
apart from the sidewalk on Gulf, to do
Right.
another sidewalk that's
Yeah.
called a promenade, that's fancier, wider,
sure.
more
And
adaptable.
it might work when they own like, you know, hundreds of feet.
Bigger parcels, it's easier than coordinating all the small ones to maybe provide an alternative where space permits.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly to collaborate on the curbing. If you're walking on a sidewalk that has no curb.
Well, it's difficult too for people in wheelchairs, you know, handicaps.
So there should be some of that accommodation at appropriate places, right? And I don't have that.
Like at a red light?
Okay.
Complete streets type projects, yeah.
Okay.
So I will say with the application that we had previously, where we would desire a 10-foot sidewalk, we can at TRC do administratively a 6-foot.
Right.
But unfortunately, he didn't even have that. So there is, I just want to say there is kind of that provision where we do have a little leeway.
Yeah.
That is already baked in.
But maybe it's a question of why 6 versus 5, and maybe looking at different areas of Gulf Boulevard as a perfect test case to say, do we establish, I don't know how 6 came to be versus 5, you know, versus 10, but.
Pedestrian sidewalks for ADA, sometimes they're 8 feet, but again, like you said, we were built out in many decades ago before some of the rules.
So the idea of a comprehensive strategy to move that forward makes a lot of sense. However, doing it, you know, as I look at the discussions on seawalls, and that's the same thing where like you do it, but you don't, and it doesn't actually add any value. In fact, it could be detrimental to the properties on either side that don't do it. So anyhow, we need comprehensiveness with this, and I love it for the safety purposes, and it would look beautiful too, but you know, for just being a more pedestrian friendly place. So okay.
One more point on that.
Digress.
Like, if you see a lot of applications coming before a city for a variance for the same thing, then sometimes it means the code itself might want to be tweaked or might need to be tweaked, because it seems like no one can deal with it, so maybe it should be changed slightly.
And if we have vacancies up and down Gulf Boulevard, you all would know better than me to say that, yeah, we're probably going to get a queued up set of these, and what would be the...
Or stairs when you're elevating houses.
Well, yes, and that conversation's already happening.
That was the most recent example, yeah.
But this is for businesses. So on the business side, how do we want to navigate this? Because it's for businesses and for residents, because we need our healthy businesses, and we need safe pedestrian traffic for all of us, but I'll say tourists and residents alike. So how do we want to solve this? And I don't know about the one-off business burden. But we already discussed that case. I'm just teeing it up as more of an opportunity to look at, you know, how we might work with the community on this. Thank you, Chris.
So how would we address this issue with the sidewalks, just administratively speaking?
Well, Senate Bill 180 doesn't prevent the city from addressing complete streets or planning for streets or transportation planning, as long as it doesn't interfere with development, making it more burdensome or restrictive. So we could work with FDOT. It's a little bit easier on our own streets. If we want to do something on Bay Street or sidewalks there, or on Corey Avenue, streets that we actually control. I think we own the streets over by the pool and the Parks and Rec building, so we could look at those things.
We'll call them all the low-speed streets, but then the highest speed street and the biggest thoroughfare.
I know, it's the biggest thoroughfare.
Is the most important probably for us to try to solve. And it is our, I would just say
I think we'll be meeting with FDOT about the Mangrove and Causeway interchange there. But yeah, this would require legislative or planning type work through the city commission, directing staff to pursue complete streets programs with FDOT for Gulf Boulevard, and then getting that on their priorities and getting it on the priority of FDOT, which is run by the FDOT secretary, who's appointed by the governor. So, you know, working with through the governor's office and FDOT district. And their engineers and our engineers trying to come up with a complete street program for pedestrian safety and for bicycle paths.
We're going to do it. Yeah, we're going to fix that this next year. That's our big goal.
What's that?
I can fix Gulf Boulevard sidewalks.
Okay.
There are a lot of tourists that walk those sidewalks. Every time I leave a city commission meeting, even there were more before the hurricane. They're starting to come back again, but it used to be there were lots of people on that sidewalk in the evening.
Absolutely, we want that.
I think we also need the lighting back, because there's a lot of dark spots as you
Yeah.
travel south.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they control where they have the crosswalks. or
Well, that's
lights
the problem.
flash.
Yes, the tourists come, they do walk in the sidewalks, then they cross wherever the hell they want to.
Yeah.
See it every day.
And tourists come down and drive their cars and they don't realize they have to stop at crosswalks, so I never trust them stopping. I always wait to make sure.
Okay. Bring you
Alright.
back to the presentation.
Yeah, so the last and the other eighth criteria is that the requested variance is in harmony with the general intent and the purpose of the comp plan and the land development code. It's not injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, is compatible with the neighborhood, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. So that's where you look at, you kind of weigh the criteria. Does it, the positives outweigh the negatives, in a way, simply put. So then we move on to practical difficulty. So you see a lot of those too. This is pretty much just going to pertain to single-family residential. If you have an ISR, impervious surface ratio, a setback, or possibly landscaping, and it's generally just for single-family homes that are located on single lots within our established big residential districts, which are RU1, RU2, RLM1, RLM2, and RM. So there are caveats to that. So if a practical difficulty variance is granted, the maximum reduction in the pervious area of a property shall be 50%. A practical difficulty variance for reduction in the required pervious area of a property can only be granted once by the city. So there's some research that has to be done with that one. If it is
It's a good one
triggered,
to add Ralph's note and should be recorded with.
right? So if it doesn't meet that, like say, it would trigger it automatically to unnecessary undo. So.
You can't just keep chipping away 50%
Correct.
and then 50% of that and 50% of that.
Sure.
Correct.
You get one time 50% maximum.
That is your, go, pass go. But if they've utilized that, then it would go for an unnecessary undo. It would go up a tier. It is a standard variance where little enforcement of a zoning reg will create a practical difficulty in the use of the parcel of the land for the purpose or in the manner for which it's zoned. It does require a full hearing, as you have seen them, and there's only 4 criteria involved with the practical difficulty, where hardship has 8. But again, they must provide the burden of proof and demonstrate without a doubt that all the criteria are met and they are satisfied.
This would be an example if you have a triangle-shaped lot, and because of the setbacks, you could only build a triangle-shaped house that's very small, or you couldn't build a house at all, then they would be entitled to that variance.
So with that, we look at how substantial the variance is in relation to the requirement sought to be varied. A lot of times you'll see that with setbacks, where 20 feet is required and they're requesting 10 feet, so that is 50%. So you look at the percentage as well as the number. Whether an adverse change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. Is it just way out of whack, or does it go ahead? Whether the difficulty can be obviated by some method feasible to the applicant to pursue other than by the variance. Again, that goes back to the hard questions, and just seeing if we can reduce the degree of nonconformity, eliminate it, any of the other possibilities. And whether in the view of the manner in which the difficulty arose, the interest of justice will be served by allowing. So, was this a self-done? Did they inherit it? Like, what happened to get to that point? Anybody have any questions on these? Okay.
No,
So-
the last one though I was just thinking about how like maybe the silt, right, of a hurricane rolls in and your docks are
Docks generally,
unusable.
yeah.
So I didn't, where did that one kind of fall under the 2 options? But
So docks are always going to be unnecessary
they're
undo.
unnecessary themselves? Or-
No, it's just, it's not a setback issue, it's not a percentage, and it's more of the more general ones that you would see. So
Okay.
not everybody has waterfront property, so kind of automatically falls into that
Okay.
next step, that higher category. So the administrative variance, this is the one you don't see, but I wanted to give you, just so you have knowledge if you're ever, talking to somebody. This is done with the city manager, and it's just really for setback and accessory structure height requirements that are found in the LDC. This has something to do with, it could be a fence height or a setback issue, but the thing of it is, it's limited to 12 inches total. So it could be a height where you want 5 feet instead of 4, or your setback, you built a new house and whoops, they, are off a little bit and you don't meet a 7-foot setback, you are 6.5, you're under that 12-inch. So you could go for administrative variance. Now, I will tell you, it does take about the same amount of time. It's not expedited, it's not anything. It's just you're not seeing the process. We still have to notice, we still do all the same work, staff findings reports, site visits, everything is still the same, except for the city manager is making that determination.
Okay, and it's just setbacks and accessory structure.
There is 5 criteria with that one, where we have 8, the 4, and then we have the 5. And they are special conditions and circumstances exist. So some of them are similar to what you see as part of the other criteria, the basis for seeking it, the little interpretation, how it would deprive the rights. It's not going to confer on the applicant any special privilege that is otherwise denied or similarly situated lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. And they need to explain how the request meets the requirements for the approval. So it's a little different, a little the same, but I did want you to be aware that that does exist.
Great.
And that's really all I had, so.
So I think with the staircases, as we're elevating houses, the code for the setback, who can change those within our city commission?
The city commission has to have
Vote on it?
2 readings to amend the code of the land development code.
What was last night's, 1 or 2? Was that the first one or
Brandon,
second
was
one?
last night the first reading or second? I can't remember.
Was last night's the second reading for the stairs situation variances?
We did
I think that was
Welcome back.
first, I think.
Looking at the other ordinance, that was,
Listen, we need you to, no.
Yeah, we're bringing back some additional.
that was the first. We have some
It was
modifications
first,
to make.
okay. Yeah, so it's being, yeah, it was just.
And a lot of times when we have the code changes, it actually goes before the planning board.
Yeah.
So they massage it, they look at, they provide, I guess, the 10 extra set of eyes, which is always great.
Yeah.
And input on that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, when you have so many cases that are so similar, I mean, and you should,
And I have to say, I do create spreadsheets.
No.
I categorize every single one of them. I have whether you're approved, denied, with conditions, even administrative, I do keep track of that
Okay.
by every calendar year. So I can see,
Yeah.
when
I
you
think
look
this
at it.
one arose, I think, because of the hurricane. People
Sure.
were elevating.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then all of a sudden became, well, how you get to the front door?
Yeah.
We've had a couple
Yeah.
issues of that,
Yeah.
haven't we?
correct.
So people, didn't really
Yeah,
anticipate it happening until, there's always something new that happens in land use.
Yeah.
Whether it's paintball that no one contemplated, where should we zone paintball? I've had it come up. So things that happen all the time.
Yeah.
New things that happen, drones, for example, these new scooters that people can rent and leave on sidewalks in some cities.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always unexpected, unforeseen land uses that
Yeah.
come up.
But I have to say, even with code changes, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, right?
Yeah.
That's why you guys exist, because there could be, whether it's a regularly shaped property or something else, not everything can always conform, so that's why you as a board are here, and you have that important, decision-making process.
Would you agree, and I don't want to belabor this, but would you agree that the sidewalk conversation can be something we move forward with FDOT in particular on Gulf Boulevard? Is that on or can we have
I
that
mean, we
teed
can,
up between you and the powers that be to figure out how we might have that dialogue?
I think we do have our director of community development here. I think it's something, she can have a conversation with the city manager
Okay.
possibly bring it to commission and figure out a priority. I mean, we have, you know,
Understand.
yeah, but
There's a planning board, here's a lot of that.
Okay.
Also, there's a priority, I forget if they call it priority retreat or prioritization meeting coming up where the city commission looks at their top priorities.
Right.
And there's public comment in front of the city commission at every meeting. So certainly just because you're on this board doesn't mean you can't get up as a citizen and make public comment at those
And I'm
at
not
those
proclaiming
meetings.
to have an answer, other than I don't think the answer is probably to have every individual property owner that does any type of change to have to come in here to talk about changing their sidewalks if it's not more thoughtfully being looked at comprehensively. That's my opinion.
There are grants available too sometimes from the state and
Yeah.
federal government for
Yeah.
planning, transportation planning of complete streets.
Okay.
and I also you have to have the mindset that it has to start somewhere, unfortunately.
Yes.
You know, like everybody
Mm-hmm.
has, whether it's one person starting as a catalyst, but if we do nothing, nothing will get done. So I think that's just the other side that we have to think of. But as we explained before, we had some concessions baked in. We're 10, we want it. 6, we could administratively. Unfortunately, he was below that.
Yeah.
So if he had that little extra and he did kind of demonstrate that he could do it, it's just he's asking for the relief for it. So
Yeah.
there's a few more elements in there.
Yeah. Well, longer conversation.
Yep.
But, okay, so our next meeting will be held November 19th?
Do we have cases next?
You have one application that will be heard, and that there is only one. I know this was a jumping off point for, you know, just discussion, but if you have other things that you'd like staff to kind of just explain a little bit more, as we can continue the conversation, we'd be happy to. But I just wanted to give us somewhere to start.
I think you have a hard job. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, and it is because of the job you do that we can have these discussions and get people to take action with the state. Otherwise, nothing would get done.
Right.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting
Gavel,
adjourned.
let the gavel fall.